Joining us now is Zachary Halaschak, a breaking news reporter for the Washington Examiner. So Zachary, regarding this decision to reopen the government in different sections, that's the goal right now. The president's saying that it's going to be left up to governors to make their own calls. Is there something that we should be acknowledging about the timing of this situation? I mean, we've seen protests over the past couple days in some states, but it seems like public opinion, at least we're coming to the polls, say that people are on board with waiting a little bit longer. Is there any timing to this decision?
Well, I think the timing's really going to depend on the individual states, and President Trump basically laid that out yesterday at the White House when he outlined kind of his guidelines for opening up America again, as they call them, and basically it's going to depend on the state. Look, Wyoming, which has just a few hundred cases, is going to be a very different process of reopening than New York, which has the lion's share of the cases in the country. So it's really just going to depend on the individual state and what their governor and what the data is telling the governors about when to reopen.
And when it comes to that decision to reopen those states, of course, there's public health concerns as well, but there's also concerns about the economy right now that a lot of people are looking to, trying to weigh those two type of individual qualifiers as to which one is more damaging, which one's more helpful. When it comes to this process in the big picture, is there a concern that maybe people will be more hesitant to go out right away, go to a restaurant, for example, and that's why they want to make sure that there's public confidence in this system before people are rushing back?
Yeah, I think that it's important that the public feels like they're safe when they get back. I mean, what you don't want is another second wave or a second wave in general. There's fear that if we reopen all of a sudden, then all the people that have been quarantining inside and, will come out into one place in the public, and then there'll be a whole new resurgence. We'll have to deal with the economic effects like a second time almost. So I think it's going to be a piecemeal process that's coming together state by state.
I think you're right on for saying that, because even right now, we don't know what that second wave will look like. A lot of people are anticipating it may come in the fall. It may be an inevitable thing, but we don't know. This could come again in a couple months. It could come again in the summer. It could just be a continuation of what we're seeing right now. So I think that's something that a lot of public health officials are looking at right now in order to gauge those numbers and track what's going on with the economy. But I also want to talk about the economy as well, because that's really what this all comes back down to. Is there an inference that hopefully the government can flip a switch the same way they did to close down these economies and get the economy back up and running once again? Or is it looking like a more of incremental type of procedure?
Well, I think that flipping the switch, that analogy is interesting, because it wasn't necessarily like a flip switch when it first started the lockdown. It was kind of each state started falling in line, and then it was kind of a domino effect. So, for example, a state like Florida opened up far later than New York, or shut down far later than New York. And I think it's not going to be like flipping a light switch on for when the economy reopens. It's going to be a gradual process, and individual states are going to start opening up at their own paces. So it'll be a gradual amp up to hopefully what our economy was before, and we'll keep growing throughout that process as individual states make those determinations on when the best time to open and what strategies, what places are going to open first as that goes forward.
It's very interesting, because it wasn't even that long ago, actually, where Florida implemented its shelter-at-home orders, whereas someplace like California, New York, they did it, I guess, months now at this point ago, if not weeks. But now those are the states that are talking about reopening. But to your point, too, you were saying that there are states that didn't take severe lockdown measures and are now once again looking at that prospect of opening back up. So I think you're right on to say that it's going to vary state by state, region by region. But we've seen the president a little bit be at odds with some governors, but also have an amicable relationship with some governors as well. Is that what the White House is looking to do now, is kind of hand off the responsibilities to governors to make these decisions and let them make their own based on their states and their regional situations?
Yeah, I think that's exactly correct. It appeared, earlier this week, or I can't remember if it was last week, but there was a lot of brouhaha when President Trump had said he has total, quote unquote, total authority to reopen those states. And after that, it was kind of an about face. And now the new policy is basically letting the governors handle on when they're going to reopen. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see kind of the order and how that's done. And if the federal government tries to, let's say a state, for example, is going much slower than another state with a similar amount of infections, will the federal government intervene? Will they do anything to try to, change that? I think that's something that'll be watched very closely to see how much leeway the governors will truly get in this, and how individual states will do it on their own.
And President Trump also saying that if need be, the federal government is the backup to those situations. He said that's been the case when it came to ventilators. He said the same about testing, although there's been a little bit more pressure on the administration to kind of utilize those tests and get them out to the states. But I think that's the type of thing that we're going to see moving forward as well, is that states now have the first calls, the things that they need to make the decisions on, and the federal government is going to back them up. So I think that's something that we should keep an eye on, too, because at the same way that a lot of states are opening up, some states are now seeing the peaks of their virus right now, too. So I don't think we're exactly out of the woods yet, but I think you're spot on for saying this is going to be a very much so regional situation. Zachary Halaschak, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for breaking down the news of the day.